The headline says BRICS has not chosen a currency, yet their own report just wrote XRP into the plan. If you have been waiting for proof that the rails are changing, this is the first crack in the dam. In the next 8 minutes, you will see the 3 signals that show why BRICS has no real alternative, the timeline that turns quiet recognition into live adoption, and the one decision point that separates people who are early from people who are late. You will see the single line in a BRICS trade finance report that gives the game away. For years, the public story said XRP was just a token. Traders said it was speculation. Analysts weighed it off as a side quest while the real world stuck with legacy pipes. The problem is that the legacy pipes cannot carry the flow that a multipolar economy demands, and private experiments kept proving that point behind the curtain. Here's where this gets dangerous. BRICS tells the world it is studying options, then a document slips out that names one rail by name. Not a basket, not a short list, a name. XRP shows up in the technical section, not the headline, which is exactly how large systems reveal intent without lighting a fire under markets. Most people stop at the headline. They say nothing is final. They say it is a footnote. But policy teams do not put a protocol into writing unless it cleared a bar. They have to test messaging, settlement speed, and compliance hooks. If the goal is frictionless cross-border flow inside a standards-based world, you write into one ledger that meets the standard. Let us break the mechanism in plain English. BRICS needs real-time settlement across multiple legal regimes. That means money has to jump borders in seconds, not days, with audit trails that satisfy central banks. It has to plug into the ISO 2002 language that the banking world is moving toward. It has to support high throughput without freezing when volume spikes. Gold cannot do that at scale. Retail crypto chains still break on congestion or require clunky workarounds. Private bank ledgers work only inside walled gardens and defeat the point of open corridors. Signal 1 is the report itself. Buried in a trade finance framework, you get a specific reference to XRP's escrow model and programmable settlement for efficient cross-border flows. That is not hype language, that is technician language. When authors choose those words, they are telling other technicians that a pilot already met the bar for a dry run. Signal 2 is the silence around competitors. If a second ledger were credible in the same role, it would sit next to XRP on that page. It does not. No Ethereum finality patch, no Solana throughput brag, no private central bank sandbox with an export button. Markets are noisy, but official documents are selective. What gets named has a path. What stays unmentioned has a wall in front of it. Signal 3 is timing. The mention lands in the same global window that banking networks complete their shift into ISO 20022 messaging. Messaging without settlement is a half measure. Settlement without messaging is a dead end. When both speak the same language, integration turns from pain to plug and play. That is why this window matters, because once the standards rhyme, switches flip fast. Here's a quick picture of how this would work in practice. A Brazilian exporter invoices a customer in India. The bank-side messages travel on ISO 20022 so every field is cleaned. The value hops onto XRP rails for final settlement, then off ramps in local currency. Fees are predictable, the path is transparent, and the float time collapses. That is not a crypto demo. That is trade finance doing its job. Now the timeline. These transitions rhyme across history. First, you get the white paper, then a technical note, then a specific reference inside an official framework, and only then the press release. The reference we have today puts us one turn before the press release. Insiders call this the acknowledgement phase. The next turn is confirmation, usually a second document or a pilot that is too visible to ignore. After that, you get the switch. In past shifts, the distance is measured in months, not years. Here is where the risk flips from interesting to urgent. By the time a headline declares a choice, the plumbing is already in place. The switch is a permission slip to use what was built last quarter. That is why you cannot wait for the public signal if you care about understanding the move. Liquidity moves on policy time, not retail time. Let us address the objection that always shows up. People say central banks will launch their own chains and skip public rails. In theory, that sounds tidy. In practice, it means building liquidity from zero and convincing many jurisdictions to read the same book on day one. That is not how real systems evolve. They attach to rails that have already solved liquidity corridors and compliance handshakes. XRP has live corridors and a mature toolkit for escrow, partial payments, and pathfinding. The part almost no one noticed is how deniability works. BRICS can say nothing is decided, which keeps markets calm and headlines polite. Inside the documents, the technical team writes the only name that fits. That is the tell. The political wing keeps the temperature down while the builders lay track. Use a simple filter. Ask what problem is being solved. It is not a new coin. It is not a new money. It is settlement between large participants who need finality in seconds with compliance-ready metadata. Run that filter across the landscape and almost every chain drops out. The survivors are the ones designed for neutral, fast, low-cost finality across borders. That set is smaller than most people think, and the one with the longest production history is XRP. Midpoint reset. The reason this mention landed now is that geopolitics finally lines up with engineering. BRICS needs an option that is not controlled by a single Western government, yet it needs to interoperate with the existing banking world. A neutral, standards-aligned rail solves both. That is why the line in the report matters more than any tweet. It shows the political constraint meeting the technical solution. Let us talk about the exception that can slow this. If a member pushes for a proprietary national rail with hard capital controls, the group will have to run parallel pilots. That can delay the switch. If you see language about national exclusivity in the next release, cool your timing expectations. If you see repeat references to shared standards and external rails, the window is still open. Education, not advice, so here's a clean if then map to read the next move. If a second BRICS paper repeats XRP by name or expands the technical section with escrow and pathfinding examples, the confirmation phase has begun. If a pilot bank publishes a case note with measured settlement times and error rates, we are inside the last mile. If a major corridor publishes a go-live date, the switch is imminent. If the name disappears in the next cycle, the political wing is buying time while the mechanics continue in the background until politics catch up. So take the three signals as a set, not as loose trivia. The explicit reference gives you the who. The silence around rivals gives you the why. The standards window gives you the when. Together they describe a move that has already begun in private. The public will meet it after the fact. One more picture and we close. Imagine a multi-bank trade where funds used to sit idle for 3 days while paperwork bounced across borders. Under new rails, the message in the money trail is one data-rich action. The exporter gets paid in minutes. The importer sees finality and can free inventory. The bank frees capital for the next trade. That is not ideology, that is cash flow. Wrap it into one sentence you can remember. The system says no choice has been made, yet the only working choice is already in the manual. That is what today's document reveals. It is the first open admission that the rails under a new world of trade are being built on XRP. The headline will catch up later. If you want these signals decoded before they hit the mainstream, subscribe now so you do not miss the next move.